Now these are the main tools or basics of uh, what you would use to create shapes like this. Um, this is a model made up of all the points and edges and faces that I had just shown you back here, but laid out in a way that makes it look like a drone. And if I turn this on, you can see the wireframe on it and how it's all put together. Now, we get here by using something called primitives, which are these planes, cubes, cylinder, and such. Um, we use these to kind of block out our shape. And what I mean by block out is think of it as exactly like this drawing, where you start off with very simple shapes to make sure that you're kind of getting the rough outline of what you're wanting to accomplish. Because otherwise, if you're going along and your shapes are starting to not line up, then it's not going to look like what you want. So, same thing that image showed is what I did for this drone. And as simple and boring as it is, this is a part of the process so that we make sure that this is the shape that, oh yes, I like this shape. And let me then continue on adding other details until it gets to something like this. Now, UV unwrapping is the process in which we lay this out on a flat 2D shape. And I can't really show you that as a flat shape quite yet. I'm going to show you something a little easier to understand. And that's this over here. So a little demonstration here for you. I've got a plane that has this texture on here that allows 3D artists to understand where in hold on, where in UV space, which this is what this is. This is UV space. Where in UV space their model is lining up to. So let's say we have an eyeball textured here. Whenever I go into edit mode and select this face or this selection, we can see that D4 is where that is. So if I rotate it a little bit and then scale it up, you can see D4. And this works just like a cardboard box. A cardboard box is a cube, but then you're able to break it down until it's a 2D shape. And if I play this little animation here, you can see this shape turns from a cube into a flat 2D shape. And we do this to all of our models so that we can have the flat 2D texture kind of wrap around our model. So if I go back to our drone, we can see, if I go into edit mode, I've got all of these red highlighted edges that are me going in and selecting parts of the mesh that I feel like would best work as a flat shape. So I can turn this off. So I can select all of this and mark a seam. And whenever I do that and I click unwrap, it comes out as a flat shape. Now if I leave that as it is, as you'll see, it's now messed up. the texture is incorrect. And that's because the texture that I had made for this drone and the UVs of this shape here, they no longer align to what I had originally wanted. So I'll just go back real quick. So after undoing all of that, we get back to our UVs looking correct and applied to the correct area of our texture. And yeah, that's kind of the basics of UV unwrapping. We try to place seams in strategic spots to make sure our model turns out a flat object. Then I'll switch to a little simpler model to show that, as this is a little bit of a complex model. If I go to our Chem Striker, which is used to ignite a flame on a Bunsen burner, it is UV unwrapped and textured. We've got texture and UVs here, and I'll quickly use this cylinder here with our handy dandy texture once more to show kind of, I guess, the process in which we want to keep our model properly unwrapped. So yeah, we've got UV seams on the top, the UV seam down this center here, and then the UV seam on the bottom. And when this is all wrapped, when this is all unwrapped, we've got it laid out as a flat image here. And I believe if I clear this seam and click unwrap, as you can see, it is yeah, a flat image or a flat shape. But if we look at our model now, it is distorting, looking not very nice. And so any model that we work on, if I bring this monkey back in, yeah, so it's properly unwrapped. UV seams are all in the right spot so that whenever it's unwrapped, it turns into a flat shape. But in the case that something's something as simple as this one little spot, if it's not properly unwrapped, it'll start to morph and look incorrect in more ways than not. So you see these UV seams, or this texture is starting to warp. It does look mostly fine. You'll have problems where a part of the model is expanded and more distorted than the other, and that's all it can take, is just one little spot for it to ruin everything else. And then we can go back. So now everything is a little more uniformly correct. Yeah. So, but if I go back to our little Chem Striker here, or our cylinder rather, and I go into UV edit mode and I select the seam, the part of the mesh I want, and click unwrap, then it'll look fine. And kind of the way we go about doing this is, if there's a shape more than 90 degrees, we'll mark it as a seam. If it's something, say, like this, technically we can leave it as this. However, this can work perfectly fine if just this was had no seams marked, and we unwrap again, and now it's, you know, one continuous shape again. So yeah, if we come here and look at our mesh here, it's a fairly easy model to unwrap. There's a way in most, well, in all programs, for us to select an edge loop, which is basically where an edge is able to properly flow through quads as long as there's a quad. If there is one mistake, this will immediately break that selection. So if one quad is a triangle, or if it's an n-gon, which is what I had mentioned earlier, this being an n-gon, if there's one mistake, it stops there. And I can just dissolve that again and then be able to select it all, and it looks fine now. But yeah, so we would mark this seam, and we'll do this one underneath so that you can't, if you're using it while you're using the Kim Striker in VR, you don't see that hard seam. And sometimes you can't get away with that. You have to mark it here because it is a 90-degree angle. You would have to mark that, or it'll, once unwrapped, it'll look all messed up. But yeah, and if I quickly undo these, just real quick, I'll just do those for now. There's some others here, but if I unwrap this, you can see this is extremely long, which can be fine, yes. However, once we go to unwrap all of this, it'll only take up a small portion of our texture when there's still all of this left over and all of this. And we try to fill in this square as much as we can. And if we can't, that's fine, but sometimes we just try our best. So if I go undo all this, let me go back to that, we can now see that whenever it is unwrapped, it is a little smaller, and it'll take up a little more space. And actually, it's better than it was just a minute ago, but there still is areas like that that are empty, and we typically don't want that. So yeah, and same with the cylinder. We can do the same thing here. We can set a UV seam around this area, but leave this open because this is under 90 degrees. This can be easily put into a flat shape. However, this has to be broken up into multiple pieces for it to be properly a flat shape. And then same with everything else. And I'll just continue. Yeah, and so that's kind of quick basics of UV unwrapping. It is essential for getting it's essential for the model to have UVs so that it can be textured. Otherwise, your texture is just going to not exist the way you want it to.